Yes, good morning, class. Hope you have a wonderful morning, as well as you're keeping safe. So you can confirm if you're able to hear me as the class progresses, so that we don't lose more minutes. Again, you can chat, or you can use your audio to confirm that you're able to hear what I'm talking about. So today I want us to look at basically how to implement the basic commands in database development, so that we'll be able to know how to create a database, how to feed it with data, and so on and so forth. So I'll begin by showing the interface of the WAMP server. The interface of the WAMP server. So this is what you expect when you start your WAMP server. The icon will be found where any other icons within the computer exist. Okay, where any other icon within the computer exists. Somehow an highlighting tool that can help in trying to show the main points. So I'm saying this is how your WAMP server should look like. Okay, so this menu here is what should appear. Okay, and I've said your menu should be accessed from your icons. Depending on how your desktop is arranged, it should be taken from there. Then when you right click on the link, you left click on the link rather, you should be able to get a menu that looks like what appears there, that shows, among other things, MySQL, PHP, Apache, www directory, phpMyAdmin, my projects, and localhost, and so on and so forth. So some of them will learn as we move forward. But now that's what you should be able to get. So if you in a position to get that menu, then the link that we are interested in for this particular point is the MySQL console. So how do we access MySQL console is actually what has been displayed on the slide there. Okay, so you come to this point, select that MySQL, then you select MySQL console. So MySQL console is at that point. Okay, when you open it up, then you should bring a black screen similar to what you're able to see from the background there. Okay, should bring a black screen that is similar to what you are seeing on the background there. So that is what should be displaying there. That's what should be displaying there. Okay. So if you've installed your WAMP server, that's how you should be able to go about it. If you've installed your WAMP server, that's how you should be able to go about it. Those who've installed XAMPP, you can let me know if you did that. Okay, you can let me know if you did that, so that I can help on how you can also access your interface or your command line for basic SQL programming. Okay, so that's how you're going to access your WAMP server every time. So other content, especially localhost and phpMyAdmin, I'll talk about it maybe towards as we move forward. They're going to be relevant for us as part of the graphical user interface of that particular software. Okay. So we're going to, we had introduced a few things on SQL, including the type of languages, DDL, DML, and so on and so on. We're just going to do the commands. We're just going to go into the commands directly. But before that, we can just have an overview of the server, what it is. Okay. So we have the package that we call the MySQL database package. So it has the MySQL server. It has the MySQL server. It has MySQL client program. Okay. So these packages will be found in the bigger version of MySQL server. Okay, the version that comes from Oracle, or if you're using the other database systems, then the versions that come from those licensed service providers or software providers. But the one we're using is just a web-based version of a MySQL server. We can call it a middleware. It's just a very small version of what MySQL server is able to do. But it's so powerful because it can program so many other things apart from the basics that we're going to begin with. Then we have the MySQL client library. Okay. So this one will help you in writing different programs. Okay. This will help you in writing different programs. The traditional way of writing programs, the one that is mentioned here is the C language, okay, and so on and so forth. So that's generally what makes up a MySQL server: the clients, the library, and the server itself. So then when we work with MySQL, so this is the same process we'll follow with WAMP server, okay? So it's the same process we'll follow, okay? So how do we begin working with MySQL server? Our command that can be used to create the database is there. Create a database. So this is the database name. Okay, that's the database name. Okay, that's the database name. So employee is the database name. So you can call it the DB name. Okay, so that's the database name. Create is the command. Is a definition a command, data definition command. Okay, so if you run this particular command, then you should get this outcome. Query OK, one row executed. Query OK, one row executed. You should be able to see that from your machine. Query executed or query OK, one row affected. Now this is the execution time. That's not really important as now, but if you want to optimize databases, then at some point you'll be forced to really take keen interest of that. Okay, so we are saying that this means that you have successfully created the database. You've successfully created the database. So if I share my screen for the command line, okay, if I share the screen for command line, okay, if you share the screen for command line, this is what we should be able to have on our screen or when you open the command line. Okay, so these are for free softwares. Okay, that's for free softwares. The other items are not really important such, but now this is what we'll call the client. Okay, we can call this the MySQL client. Okay. When you open it for the first time, it will always show you require password from you, but it's a free open source software. Don't enter any password. Just press the enter key, and it will be able to execute and display these lines you see here. Okay, it will be able to display these lines you see here. Okay, and the root, what we call the MySQL root from here. Okay, so don't enter password. Don't struggle entering your password. Just press the enter key, and it will be able to move to the next one. You can see they are talking about trademark here for Oracle Corporation. So this belongs to the Oracle. Previously, MySQL database used to be from the Sans microsystems. Okay, when they were working maintaining Java and so on and so forth, before the company decided to sell it out to Oracle. So Oracle currently, they manage two huge database management system, MySQL, and also they manage the Oracle itself. Oracle itself is also a very huge database management system. So that's what you should be able to see if you successfully manage to access what we call the MySQL client or MySQL monitor. Okay, so so the commands will go there. So your commands, you only type your commands when you are this particular route. Okay, that's when you are allowed to type your commands. And each command that you're going to type must end with a semicolon. Very, very important. Each command that you're going to type must end with a semicolon. So like, for instance, here, if I begin by the command that I was talking about, create database. Okay. Create database. Test 1. 2020. Okay. Then I'll put the semicolon. Very, very important. I'll put the semicolon. Very, very important. Okay. At that particular point there. Okay. That point there. Very, very important. Okay. Then when I enter, it will show query okay, 1 row affected. And the querying time is 7 milliseconds. Is that milliseconds? 7 milliseconds, yeah. Okay. Now, how do I know that that database has been created? So the second command is to display, to view the database that have been created. So you say show command, you use the show command, and you say show databases. Show databases, and you enter that. Now from there, you'll be able to see a number of things. Okay, you'll be able to see a number of things. So if you want to see the database I've created, is this one. Okay. If you're creating this database for the first time, you've just installed WAMP, then you're likely just to see maybe these two. Okay, plus your database that you've created. So the first two, especially the first one, is what we call the system database. It contains information regarding the server. It contains information regarding the syntax. I'm sure you know that from your knowledge of compilers, that a compiler will come with inbuilt libraries where it can be able to check, did you write your program correctly? If not, then the errors are given. The same thing happens here. So the information schema there is the source of the syntax that we're using here, and those any other system-based library files can also be found there. Okay, so that's the first item. So you create a database, and then you check if the database has been created. If it has been created, you'll be able to see it from that particular point. Okay, then number two, if you want to use your database, the command is use. Okay, this is the command that you use to activate your database. Okay, so if you want to use your database, that command is supposed to be there. So if I type my command there and say use test 1 2020, okay, and I put semicolon, okay, I enter, it will tell me that the database has been changed. It will say the database has been changed from here. Meaning, now all the databases that you've seen in my computer there, or my server there, we've picked on one, and that one has been activated. Okay, so all those databases that are not part of test 1_2020 are going to be inactive. Any command that you subject to this particular interface as at now is going to be subjected to test 1_2020. Okay, so I can also use the same show command to check on tables. So I can say show tables. Okay, just typed something wrong there. Show tables. Okay, it will show that there's an empty set. Okay, there's an empty set, meaning that there are no relations within that database. We've not created any relation within that database. Okay, so all these things that we are doing, for instance, the database that I've created in a few seconds ago, that database exists in that computer permanently, unless now you drop it or delete it. Okay, so that means that if I come back at a later time, tomorrow, next week, or whichever time, database test 1_2020 will still be in existence. So what do I do if I want to use it? You just start your WAMP client, or the client software. In this case, we're using the Mysql console command line. Then just say use test 1_2020, and that database will be active. So you don't need to create the same database every time. Okay, that database, once it is created there, it will remain there. Okay, and anytime you want to use it, just come and activate it. So the activating command is use command. Okay, so that is how we're going to begin working with the command line. That's how we're going to begin working with the command line. So you can also copy and paste commands into the command line. It's possible. You can copy and paste commands into the command line. It's very possible. But now the problem here is that, look, for instance, let me create something here. So let me say create table class list. Get table class list. Okay, So in the syntax of creating a table, I'm just going to take you back to the note so that you can copy the syntax. Is that the table must have columns. Okay, remember, table is the translation of an entity. So if the entity was student, then we are creating a table called student, and the student should have those features or attributes, registration number, and so on. So those are what we're going to call those are going to make up the columns. Okay, so in creating a table, I need to have the columns. Okay, so I can say the columns here is going to be, so my class list is going to have name, and my name is going to be a variable character. Okay, my name is going to have a variable character, maybe of size 30. I mentioned earlier that the size there does not really have a very big, a very important thing. Okay, then I'll have maybe name, registration number. Okay, I can say registration number, because it's a mixture, is going to be a variable character. It's going to be a variable character. Okay, then I can have the column to mark or show absent or present. Okay, show absent or present. So I might have, let me say, status. So that is the status of the student, and this is going to be integer. So if you're absent, it's 0. If you are present, it is 1. Okay, so that's going to be an integer. Integers most of the time doesn't have to really have the size. Okay, then for now, maybe we don't have the primary key. We can just put a primary key. And our primary key here is going to be registration number. Okay, and the spellings must be very, very alike. They have to be very, very alike for us to move on. Okay, then I put a semicolon. Now what I'm trying to demonstrate here is how easy it's going to be if I write the whole command in one line to do a correction. So let's imagine maybe I have a problem here. Let me just put an error here. Okay, let me delete the Y so that that is an error going forward. So if I enter this, okay, it's going to show me an error. What is most interesting in this software is that it's like programming the other ordinary languages. The errors are not direct. Look at the error that is being given there. Error 1046, 1064, thereabout. Okay. The error says, you have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that correspond to your SQL Server version for the right syntax to use near KE. Okay. So probably that's where the problem is. It just gives you an hint where the probable position of the error might be, but it doesn't show you the exact position. So you must have known what you're trying to do in order to be able to go around that. Okay, so it's because I missed that. So what you do, go to the upper scrolling arrow in your laptop, in your desktop. Okay, the vertical arrows, the upper one. Okay, then press it and it will be able to display okay, just press that arrow. Okay, and it will be able to display the previous command that you are writing. And because you had written it in one line, you have the ability to use the horizontal scrolling arrows, okay, to move the cursor back and forth. Move the cursor back and forth. So I'm sure you can see my cursor moving towards the T. So I can move my cursor all through, even to the first sentence. Okay, just because I wrote the whole pieces of commands in one line. I separated with the comma where there's a comma. Okay, but now if that was not the case, I wrote my command in bits, the way most of the books and most of the online online sites will present the commands, they'll present them in different lines. So for instance, my command there can as well look like, maybe I'm going to show you what it should look like on the notes. Okay, but now if that is the case, I can move my cursor with a lot of ease because everything is in one line. It's continuous. And then I can come there and maybe put the Y that was missing. Okay, the Y that was missing, and try writing it again or running it again. So our running it again here means you press the enter key after the semicolon. Okay. Fortunately, there's another error. Okay. Where's that one? Okay, there's an error that I've placed there that I need to check. Create table class, name, version, version number, version. Okay, I missed a bracket here. Okay, you can see very well, very important. This bracket here, okay, the bracket I've added here should be closing this one. Okay, the bracket I've added there should be closing that one. So you can see that very well. Otherwise, you miss that, then you'll have trouble going forward. Okay, so you can see that a table has been created there. We say the query okay, 0 rows affected, about 70 seconds that has been used to execute that particular query. So how do I check my table has been created? I say describe. Okay, I can say show tables first so that I see if my table do exist. Show tables so that we ensure it's no longer an empty set. So you can see there's a class list that exists there. Okay. So in database called test1 underscore 20, the tables inside that database is one table called a class list. So if I want to see the structure of class list, I just say describe class list. I've had a spelling error there. So you can see the error was that that table doesn't exist in that database. So a very important aspect also here, you can see this error the way it has been displayed. Check this error the way it has been displayed. There's a dot here. From your object-oriented programming, you'll learn about a dot, very, very important aspect. So there's a dot there. What does that dot indicate? The writing on the left side of the dot is the database name. Writing on the right side of the dot is the database, is the table name. Okay, so this is the DB, and this is the table. Okay, the DB, and that is the table. Very, very important, because when you'll be running advanced queries in a database, not even maybe in this lecture, but if you want to go forward with your career in IT, it's very relevant that you're going to run advanced queries going forward in your project, in the industry, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's very, very important that you get to know that. So the dot there separates the database and the table name. If you're doing those queries, you'd use that dot, especially if you're selecting content from different databases, so that you ensure that you distinguish one database from the other and you don't select wrong content from wrong databases. Okay. So if I describe that table, that's what I'll have. If I describe that table, that's what I'll have. Okay. So the fields are there. Their data types are shown here. whether they can be null or not is shown there. Remember, I'd mentioned a control or a check called not null. If you don't want that column to be null, null means that empty. You don't want that column to be empty at any given time. Okay, then what you need to do is you need to say not null. You need to say not null. But now, what is very important there is that you see for the column called registration number, it's by default not null, cannot be empty. Reason being, it's a primary key. Yeah. Reason being, it's a primary key. So you can see that. Reason being, it's a primary key. So it cannot be null at any given time. It cannot be null at any given time. Okay. So that's how the commands begin. That's how the commands begin. So you can take maybe some few notes from these at the end. You can take these notes from these at the end and ask a question if you have one. Okay. So those ones I've talked about. So creating tables. So we have this table called is it given a name really? You can give it a name. It's a table with the name, age, country, and email. So probably this table is maybe for is a table within the immigration department or something of that nature. Just a random table somewhere. Okay, so that's the table that needs to be created. 4 columns: email, country, age, and name. So you'll have to decide which data types is going to be used. You'll have to decide which data types is going to be used. So you can copy that table, then you copy also the code or the piece of commands that are used to create it. So you can see the syntax I've shared on the next page there. This syntax here. Okay. This syntax here is for the table we've just shown before there, with a few content that have been added. Okay. With a few content that have been added. We've broken the names as the concept of normalization requires. Okay. We've equally added a few things. We've added a primary key. Okay. We've added a primary key. Then we've added title. Okay. The age is there. We've added years of service. We've added the salary scale. We've added a foreign column there, and we've added the email. Email was there, okay? So we just modified the table to add more data, but the syntax is what is important for us here. And remember, the concept of normalization in databases did not end in semester 2, okay? The concept of normalization in databases did not end in semester 2. We continue with it going forward, okay? So you have always checked the database, the table you want to input in a database, if it's still part of what we have talked about in normalization. Does it satisfy those conditions? Okay. Now, so there's the auto increment concept here, meaning that that particular column should increment itself. And a column that is supposed to increment itself can only be an integer, where the numbers is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. You can't have a column called first name with a variable character data type, then you expect it to increment itself. It won't be possible. Those characters or strings cannot be able to increment. So auto increment means the column adjusts itself from maybe 1, 2, 3, or depending on how the starting is going to go. Of course, it will start from 1 automatically if you don't provide the range. Then another way of assigning the primary key, apart from what I did on the command prompt, or the command interface there, is like this. Just mention the column, the data type, if you want it to be null or not null, auto increment, but now at the end just specify primary key. The disadvantage with this method of specifying primary key is, one, if primary key is a composite key, okay, meaning that 2 or 3 columns have been used to make up that primary key, you will not be able to state it here. You will not be able to state it here, okay? That's why in the method that I used, you use a bracket. So if 1 or 2, so if this is the primary key, then you can have your bracket. If 2 attributes or 3 are used, you can have your first attribute here, comma, the second attribute here, okay, and then you can close. Now this will show a composite primary key, a primary key where we have attribute 1 and attribute 2 combined together to make up a primary key. So that's why the one that you place in brackets is very, very important. And that one does not, you don't need do, the syntax is not similar to this. You can't put it here. You'll have to define those columns on their own, then the primary key will come somewhere here towards the end of that particular table. Any questions so far? Linus is asking for download link. I'll provide that. I'll share with you maybe on the portal, but WAM server is an open source. You just type it and you'll be able to get several mirrored servers that offer the download, but I can share with you one of the download links. You can be able to get it from there.
Hello. What am I? I'm making a benefit of my day.
Okay, so I've provided explanation. That's slide there shows explanation on detailed explanation on those previous contexts. Okay, it shows explanation on those previous content. So why we are using those words there, especially this one here. So the int is the type of the data, and assign will determine the what do we call it, the sign. Let me just call it the sign of the number that is being used. Not very important for basics SQL programming. Not null, I've mentioned that quite a number of times, and of course I've explained what auto increment means if it is used in a column or if it is used as part of the SQL command. Okay. So primary key, I talked about it. Okay. Now, so this the syntax you're using there is something a different syntax depending on which you can try it at your own given point. But I've mentioned that for you to use a database or for you to make a database active, you use the command use. Okay, I've mentioned that very clearly. Okay. So all these are the examples that or other means that you can use, especially in different platforms. Like in Linux, you can do that, and so on and so forth. So those are all examples, but I've said we use this, okay? We use this. If you want to activate a database, let's use that. The others you can try at your own time and how they work. So this command, I've mentioned it. Show tables. I've talked about it. Describing a table, I've talked about it. You can also pick the syntax. So that is how the describing that table will look like. The table we have, that's how it will look like if we describe it. So it will show under extras how to increment. That is meaning any extra information that within the column or any extra information that is related to the column. Okay. So where we do not check the null or not null, it will accept, it will put that. And the default will also be the same. Okay. So when I pause, I expect that you're picking some notes for yourself on that slide that is displaying. Next, we can move to the next item. We can move to the next item. So once our table database exists, our database is active, we have created tables inside it. The normal thing to do is we're going to have data sent to the database. It's very normal. It's one of the items that you need to do. We're going to have data that are sent into the database so that it improves the interaction. It improves the interaction. Okay, so we have our insert command here. That is the primary way of putting data into a database. That's the primary way of putting data into the database. So the syntax is insert into, then the table name. The table name. Very important. So you must mention the table name, the table that you want to put that data into. Okay. Then mention the columns. This one can be done for the first time you're inserting data. Then for the subsequent insertions, you can as well ignore that. But it's good practice to have complete commands. It's good practice to have complete commands. Okay. So you'll have the column name here mentioned. You separate them using a semicolon, not semicolon, a comma. Okay. And of course, they should be enclosed in a bracket. They should be enclosed in a bracket. You can see this bracket here, and you can see this one here. So they should be enclosed in a bracket. Okay. Then you say values. Then the values are here. Okay. So what is important to take note of is that values that are character-like, values that are character-like should be in quotations. Okay, values that are character-like should be in quotations. Very, very important. Very, very important. Close them, separate them with commas if there are so many, and then close. The values you're giving here should be in the same order your columns are, because the server does not know how to check that this value belongs to this column. What the server will do is first in, first stored. Okay. So if the value came in first, it will be stored in column 1. The second one, column 2. So as you insert your values, they ensure that they obey the order in which your database table was designed. That should be the same case if you're now working with the graphical user interface. Maybe you've developed your database and now you are developing the front end of that particular system. Okay. Ensure that the form or the input method that you're going to provide for the user there reflect or mirror what your table look like in the database. If you mix those columns, then you're going to have trouble trying to enter data into your table. Okay, so don't mix the columns. Don't mix the columns. So an example is provided here. Maybe for the previous content that we had, an example is provided there. Maybe for the previous content that we had. Okay, so that's an example there. Now, maybe something you need to observe is that the characters or the variable characters are in quotations. So this one can be either double quotation or single quotation. Okay, this can be double or single. Integers are left open. Okay, so that's something you need to take in interest of. Integers are left open. Okay. So we'll learn a few things, then we can go back to the command line. And what's wrong with Sylvia? Oh, Sylvia, what's the problem? So an explanation further is given there, basically to explain what we've talked about. Okay. So the issue of querying the table. Okay. If you want to query the table, so you've created, you've inserted, now you want to query. Okay. You want to know which data are inside there. Very, very important aspect. So we say that to query a table, the primary command is select. Primary command is select. Very, very important. Select. That's the primary command. So the command will be used together with a clause. We normally call it where clause. Not a must, but you'll find it very necessary unless you're doing a very, very basic select command or select query. But anytime you're doing a bit of a restrain or filtered kind of data that you need from the database, then you'll find yourself that it's really, really necessary that you do a select with a where clause. Okay. So where is the condition? It's like what we used to do there back in programming, if else, and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is the syntax of the select. The column names appear here. So you say column names that you want to select. Then from. So select work together with from. Works together with from. Then you can have your where condition. If it requires a where condition. If it doesn't require a where condition, then you really do not need to have that. Okay. So example is given here. You select first name, second name, or a last name from employee data. So employee data is the table name, and F name and L name are the column names. F name and L name are the column names. Okay. So maybe this will provide you with the output that for all the names that are there, both for the L name and the F name that are present in that particular table, they'll all be displayed on the screen. Okay. So that's a syntax that you're supposed to be working on. So how many have downloaded the WAMP server? How many have downloaded the WAMP server? Because it will be very useful if you are working together, so that as we do the commands, you also do them on your side. It will be very important to you. It will add value to you because you'll get the real-time response if you have an issue that you are facing. Okay, so that's a select command that will help us in doing the selection process. Okay, so those are the output depending on how many content that you had entered into the database. Those are the output depending on how many content you've entered on the database. Now, before maybe we do one or two examples, I want us to look at the where condition, how it comes in. But now, very important is this symbol here, the star or the asterisk sign. So if you're doing a select and you want everything, you do the star. If you're doing a select and you want everything, you do the star. So you say select. It's called all. Select. Okay. Select all. Select everything that is inside the table with no specification of what you want. Okay. So very, very important symbol there. So it will bring everything. It will bring everything that you want to do. So we can go back to briefly to the command line and do one or two things. Any question? Any question? Okay. So we can just begin again, maybe show tables. Okay. Show tables. We have our tables there. And so we can say describe class list. Okay. And say describe class list. Okay, so it's there. So we can say insert into class list. Insert into class list. Then we can mention the columns. So we have name, reg number. The spellings must be the same. That's why I described the table before, so that I can copy. I can just copy the correct spelling. Otherwise, you'll have trouble with your query. You'll have trouble with your query. Okay. So values. Okay. So what I'm inserting is name. I can call it Steve. Okay. And we had agreed that this one should be in quotations because they are characters. They are variable characters. Okay. So either string or the variable characters should be in quotes. Position number, we can have DIT 010020. We can have 2020. Okay. Then we can say status absent. So we said that absent is 0, present is 1. That's why we declared it as an integer. Otherwise, we'll have trouble. Okay. Okay. Let me just see. So I have an error there. Let me just check what has happened there. Should have missed a colon here, and I missed a quotation here. Not there. There. Okay. So I missed a quotation there. Yeah, there's a mismatch on the column. Column count does not match value. Okay, let me just see that. It's either because my registration number is too long and does not match the data that I'd given. Let me just leave it at that and see what happens. Okay. So we have Steve, we have DIT01, then we have 0. Let me just write it afresh so that so insert into class list. So the columns were name, reg number, oh, so the problem was the reg number. The reg number is an underscore, okay? Is an underscore here, okay? So the reg number is an underscore. That's where the problem was. Okay, so that's a duplicate entry. So I just need to change this maybe to 3. Yeah, and it will go through. So that's an insertion there. So if I describe, if I select all from that table, select all from class list, okay, select all from class list, then that's what I should be able to see. That other entries have just entered now. So the status is 1 and so on and so forth. The name is Ken. The registration number is DIT01, 02, 03. Now the DIT here we cannot repeat. We cannot have maybe DIT0101 because these are primary key. So for instance, if I try doing the same entry for Ken with the DIT03, the system will say duplicate entry. Okay, the system will say duplicate entry. You can see from here, duplicate entry for primary, for the primary key. Okay, so it's impossible to do that. So maybe if I want something different, I can just go. I'm using the scrolling arrows, the vertical ones, okay, the upper one, to access those previous commands. Okay, so you can do that for when you're doing practice to avoid wasting a lot of time. Okay, so I can just edit Ken here. maybe I have Mike. I can have Mike, and then this one has to change. If I don't change the ratio number, then it will have a problem because it's a primary key, so it has to change. Okay, then I can enter that and it will go through. So if I do the select, if I do select all, then you can see the content has increased. So that's how we build our tables. That's how we build our tables. That's how we build our tables. How about if I want to do a special select? If I want to do a special select, I can say select, maybe name. Okay, that's a special select specifically for a particular point or a particular a given column. Okay. Any question on the previous content that we've worked on? Swali? Oh, there's so many stuff here. Now, so there's Linus and Denver. What's the exact problem? Have you installed your WAM? Can you share your screen? Share with us what is happening. I'm making you presenters. Can you share your screen, Linus, and show me what is the problem? Because when you tell me missing a file or something, really I don't understand what you mean. So for Denver, this is how you start your MySQL from. This is how you start your MySQL. So search for Denver, search for MySQL. It's not MySQL, really. Search for WAMP server on your machine. Search for WAMP server on your machine. Then double click it, just the same way you would start any other program. Once you double click it, you will find it in your. You'll find it among the icons in your machine. You'll find it among the icons in your machine. Okay. Then click on the icon. It will display a sub-screen. It will display a sub-screen that looks like what I want to share on my screen. Looks like what I want to share on my screen in a few minutes. No, I'm trying to share my screen on the print screen I've done on the ARM server that I'm not able to do that. Maybe for Denver, you let me know how far you are. You let me know how far you are. But meanwhile, as I've mentioned, just go to your computer, search for ARM server once you install it. Okay, good. So that's what should be there. Because I was trying to share mine and I'm not in a position to do that. Yeah. Yes, so that's how you're supposed to go about that. That's how you're supposed to go about that. So if there is no any other question, then we can try maybe the select with we can do the select with aware condition, and maybe we can stop there and then answer a few questions that I've prepared for you guys. So take, for instance, in my table there, class list, I want to select the content or the details of Mike, especially the name and the status. Okay, I want to check the name and the status. So how do I go to do that? I want only the name and the status. Okay, so I can select name. And select name. The next one I want is status. Okay, then from class list. From class list. Okay. Then now that is where my where condition will come in. Okay, that's where my where condition will come in. So I'll say where. I'll say where reg number. Okay, reg number is equals to DIT 04. DIT 04. Then I'll put my semicolon there. So I want the name and I want the status. The table that I'm selecting from, so these are the content that I want, name and the status. The table I'm picking them from is called class list, and my condition is here, where registration number is 04, DIT-04. Then you see the output for that. It will definitely go for Mike alone. It will definitely go for Mike alone and bring the content here. This and that. Bring the content there. Okay. So that is the select command. Briefly, we are going to, there are more about select commands that we'll be able to visit. Okay. Yes, so I want you to go to your WAM servers. If you did not install, make an effort of installing it. Sit down, try to run those commands. I'm going to give the notes or put the notes there, the ones that we've taught today. And there's a discussion question I'm going to put in a forum. If I had not mentioned it before, I need to mention it now. Discussion forums on the portal is part of our learning process. When a question is posted there, all of us, you give your input. All of us, you give your input. Okay. So if I create a forum and post a question there, then all of us should give our own input for that question. The question I'm going to give is going to require you to program on your screen or on your MySQL console, then screenshot and upload the content. Screenshot and upload the content of what you've done. Okay. Yes, if there's no any other question, or if there's a question you can ask. Michelle, are you there? Share your camera. Are you there, Michelle? Can you share your camera? Okay, so if there's no question, then you go and try and install that content. You can let me know if there's an issue with that. And then we can be able to try and tackle it later. Okay. So you can go try. I'm uploading the notes in the next few minutes. So thank you for today. Stay safe. Let's meet next week. So the commands are so many, as I mentioned. I'm going to upload a number. Try them at your own. We'll not tackle each and every command. I'll just go for the primary ones. Then the other pieces you'll be able to put up together on your own. So try and take that advantage. Try those commands on your own. So next time also I'll try and demonstrate the use of the PHP myadmin and localhost, just to ensure that we get integrated together with the whole software. We know what the primary parts are supposed to help us do. Okay. Yes. So if there's no any other question, you're free to log out.
You are currently the only person in this conference.